welcome, Kathy, to Think NP's Backstage Pass. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we have with us Kathy Beveridge of Spark Nonprofit Consulting. And Kathy, I'm just going to read right off your bio here so I get it right so that everybody knows your background. And Kathy is, like I said, president of Spark Nonprofit Consulting. You have more than 24 years experience in fundraising and leadership in the nonprofit sector. You're a graduate of the Mendoza College of Business at the University of Notre Dame. In fact, we talked about this. You did your undergraduate and your master's degree there, and your master's is in nonprofit administration. Kathy translates knowledge of best practices to small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations to help them improve their effectiveness and financial stability. And I really thought this was good because you have three major points here in this next section that are really important. First of all, you have 10 years of extraordinary results oriented development experience at top tier universities. And that's a great place to learn fundraising is at universities. And you had a full spectrum of cutting edge things that you did, so that you really can bring a lot to any mission that way. You had experience as executive director. I don't know whether to say congratulations or I'm sorry.
Both are appropriate.
Yeah, but that's really good, especially at a small nonprofit where you're going to do everything, and you're working with boards and all that, so you really know what it's like to be in the trenches that way, and what fundraising has to do with being an executive director and leadership, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally, you have significant startup experience. And that's huge because so many organizations are getting themselves started, or even if they're not getting themselves started, I know they feel like they are, even though they're 5 or 10 years old. It's like you have to reboot them or something. So I know that's something you can do. And all are key, like you say here, to fundraising success. So let's just get started. So tell me, now we talked about kind of the things you do, but what kind of consulting do you do with nonprofits? What's your favorite thing to do?
Well, since I've been in fundraising for so many years, that's almost always my entree into the organization. They're concerned about fundraising. Almost every nonprofit has major concerns about fundraising. Mm-hmm. But what I've gotten into is a lot of board development. Board recruiting is a major step that a lot of organizations miss and really don't know how to do well, and it's part and parcel of effective fundraising.
Yeah, that's huge. That really makes a big difference.
Yep. Yeah. So we do board recruiting. We do help the board meetings become more effective, because if you're going to recruit great board members, you need to keep them, and that means you need to give them the information they need to be effective as board members, and the board meeting process sometimes doesn't run the way it should at smaller organizations.
Yeah, it just can't be like talking heads and reporting and all that. You have to kind of engage them.
The engagement piece is often missing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the part where they inform people of what's going to happen at the meeting and give them the accurate information so they can make good decisions at the meeting, that's often missing because there's not a lot of pre-planning going on, and the people who are planning the board meetings. Yeah. So I get involved in helping them with some systems to address that.
So I know we're kind of taking a little bit of an angle here on this, but now you've talked about boards, and as a consultant, how do you work with a board that's different than when you were a staff member?
Well, the board members who are responsible for bringing me in are usually my key point of contact, and they tell me what they're looking for. And then I usually spend some time telling them, in addition to what you're looking for, here's what I think you might need. And we work around to delivering what they can afford and what they need most, first, second, and third.
Now, I'm sure that you're not intending that as a sales pitch, but maybe you are. I don't know. No, but it does seem. But it's good. But how do you make it so that it's not like coming off self-serving that way?
Usually pretty organic. I mean. They're addressing issues, and I'm pointing at the underlying issues that they may not realize are related to the problem that they're having.
Gotcha.
Getting board members involved in fundraising is usually the overlying problem.
Right.
And then under there is, what did you say to them when you recruited them? Are they aware of what's expected of them? Is there a one-pager that you can give people when you're recruiting them so they know what's expected?
So they're bringing you in for fundraising, but now you're talking about board orientation and education.
And the culture of the board
right.
and all of these issues that they may not realize are really affecting whether these board members are going to be effective for them.
Right, right. Yeah. So that's huge. Boards are a major part of the consulting experience, but also the organization itself. So I'm sorry, I kind of got you. So we talked about boards. We talked about what other things are you engaged in?
Well, I really enjoy strategic planning, and I had a great course at Notre Dame in the M&A program that put me on to some ideas about policy and planning, and it's something that appeals to me. So I'm trying to have more of that kind of experience, and I find it's a very rewarding way to work with nonprofits to try to take them from where they are to what they could be by focusing in the process I use on what they call the big questions, the underlying issues that need to be resolved, rather than trying to do like a 3-year plan and every 3 years we look at everything again. This is, periodically you take a look at the biggest question or challenge or opportunity that's in front of you.
Right.
And I teach the board to work on those challenges with some tools that we develop together. And then they go forward and use them again periodically as needed when new opportunities arise. So
you said something, again, I'm just going to grab a word out of what you just came to, was teaching. So do you find a lot of your work is teaching?
Absolutely.
So talk a little more about that. How does that work, that you get people in teachable moments there?
Well, you're teaching all the time if you're describing scenarios and situations that aren't workable and what they could do differently. I find I use lots of examples from my other clients, preserving their confidentiality, of course, but making suggestions based on what I've seen working in other places. I also, almost immediately in my practice of consulting, I gathered a lot of resources from other Board Source, for example, PANO.
Sure.
They're wonderful.
That's the Pennsylvania Association of Nonprofit Organizations.
That's right. And the Association of Fundraising Professionals have great resource centers on their websites. I pull down things I need at the moment, and then oftentimes I use them again and again with different clients who have encountered the same issues. So I become a resource for them. Both what I know from my experience and what I've gathered from these wonderful resources that are out there, and I bring them the information at the right moment.
Yeah, right. That's your expertise.
Value.
You can do that. Yep. Now, so logistically, I mean, do you have like racks and racks of file cabinets sitting someplace? How do you manage all this information?
Well, it's all electronic now.
Okay, good.
So it's all on the computer. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just about organizing it in a way that you can get your hands on it again when you need it.
Okay, so it's all computer file structures and making sure that you
right.
know
And
where
I oftentimes have things in my computer under my client's file name, but also under a folder called Resources, separated by subject matter, so that I can always find all my resources on board policies, for example, are together.
Right.
And I can pull them out because everybody ends up needing a policy now or then. They want to know what's best practice. They want to know, how are other people doing this, addressing this issue, and it gets easier and easier after years of doing this.
And accumulating all these things.
That's right.
So how do you keep up with the current stuff? I mean, are you members of all these organizations, Board Source and AFP and all that?
I became a member right away when I started my business.
Okay.
And I felt it was a really valuable investment in my knowledge. Plus, I think when I bring these resources to my clients, they value it. I encourage them to join as well, especially when there's some great value that they need from the resource. But I can give them a taste of what's there, and then show them what else they could have access to.
Right.
So I think it's a way that a consultant adds value. I need to know this anyway, and I can bring this to my clients as needed.
So is your job in some ways, because you're saying, kind of set them off, I mean, is your job to work yourself out of a job in some respects, or how does that?
Yeah, well, I have several clients for whom I do their fundraising.
Okay.
So I'm involved on a longer term basis.
Oh, so you're like their development officer,
Yeah.
kind of like a contract basis.
Right, it's sort of what they can afford. They're smaller organizations, they don't have a development officer. Some of them are lucky they have an executive director, sometimes it's just a part-time executive director. So I'm keeping their board members on track on the kinds of things that board members can do for fundraising, and so I have an ongoing relationship there.
Sure.
Other times it's what you suggest. I'm trying to get them to the point where they can do it themselves. I've had a client, for example, who really needed to get board involvement on committees, and we got one committee going in leadership and governance, and now they're really doing fine. They don't need me anymore, and they've moved me on to help the development committee get going. And that, as we were saying earlier, that was one of the challenges. You've got to get the board recruiting. You've got to get more people on the board.
Right.
When you've got that going, then you've got to get board members involved in fundraising, and so that's been the progression there.
Right.
And eventually I assume they won't need me anymore, and that's great.
Yeah, right.
That's success for me.
And you get good referrals on that, and people, and they talk.
Well, in fact, almost all my marketing is word of mouth. Periodically I've tried a little bit of marketing. I don't find that it's really a value added for the business.
Yeah. Now you're in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and are all your clients in Bucks County? Do you go farther afield? How's that work for you?
Well, I'm willing to go farther afield, and I have done. I've had clients in Harrisburg and Gettysburg and northern New Jersey. And, but my preference is to stay close to home because I like being flexible and I like not spending a lot of time in the car. So I tend to end up with more clients around home. And it's one of the benefits of being a consultant.
And so you've developed, I imagine, a positive reputation.
I think so.
Right. Yeah. In Bucks County and the area there. Do you cross state lines very often?
I have. I've had some clients in New Jersey, and a very difficult experience with the government agency in New Jersey that required all kinds of extra insurance and forms to be filled out and lots of red tape. So I won't be doing that again, but it was an interesting project, and I'm not sorry about that.
Okay, well that's good. Yeah. That's good, and that's one of the things you learn as you move along here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, how or why did you decide? I mean, I think you were recently, I forget what your last job, paycheck job was. I guess you were the executive director, right?
Right.
Why give up that and decide to become a consultant?
Well, ever since I graduated from undergrad, I was looking at what's the best occupational area for me, and I've done some testing to find out what I'm really good at and what I really like, and development was always my thing.
Yeah, we're talking about Myers-Briggs before we started filming here.
You learn from the Myers-Briggs. There are occupational inventories you can do, and they give you a really good hint about what will appeal to you. So fundraising has always been a very appealing area for me. It fits my personality, and it's what I like to do.
Good.
But as I've grown, I've learned, to try new things and see if this would be a profitable area for me. The executive director role was good for me, but it was incredibly stressful, and I did not enjoy the extra stress of being the person responsible for the bottom line all the time.
Yeah. As a friend told me one time, you can do anything you want, but when it's really hard to do it, you know that maybe you need to do other things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not the hard part, it's just that it takes up so much of your energy. You want to do something that energizes you, not that sucks you down.
Right, and sometimes you can forget how to sleep at night and be awake all hours trying to address the challenges of the organization. So that was not for me, but I really did enjoy all aspects of nonprofit, and at that time I had finished my master's in nonprofit administration, and I wanted to do more than just fundraising. I did not want to be the frontline fundraiser for one organization anymore.
Right.
I enjoy the challenges of working with multiple organizations. I like facing new challenges all the time, new clients with new issues, and I like teaching, and that's a big part of consulting. So I've always enjoyed having that diversity, and of course having the flexibility that you get when you have your own business.
So did did it feel like you were jumping out of a plane without a parachute? I mean, a lot of people would say, well, it was so scary or whatever.
Yeah, I was lucky, and we had to scale way back, but we had one income that was for sure, and so my income became a little bit iffy for a while there, and it really did take about 2 years to earn anything significant from the business. So that's a long time for people, and I know a lot of people give up after about 6 months and they think I can't do this anymore. I was very fortunate to have a little more time to make it grow and work for me. But I've always enjoyed the fruits of my own labor. In other words, if I'm doing it and I'm trying really hard, that's part of the process and I love it. And so it didn't scare me as much as it was thrilling and exciting and very enjoyable.
That's cool. That's really great, because that you're right. So many people kind of get themselves into it, and then and for any number of reasons. And one of the big reasons that small businesses fail, of any kind of business, is financing and all that.
The pressure.
Yeah, right.
Of the
So,
money.
so that's good. So, how did you find your first 1, 2, 3 clients? How did that work out?
Well, it's an interesting question, and when I was thinking about it in advance, I actually had to look them up and remember the stories. But they were people that I knew from my other jobs. So one was a dean from a college that I worked for, who was now in a different place and without a development officer and needed something sort of interim. Another was somebody I had worked with when I was the executive director of the Women's Fund, and then she was working with another organization on a community engagement project and thought I could help. Finally, I think the third one was maybe a talk that I did. And somebody who was at the talk came up to me and asked me if I would come and talk to their board and perhaps do like a fundraising educational session with them. And we got into that and did that. And
thus confirming how good a teacher you were.
Well, it was nice to find that was valuable and that they thought it could be tailored for their organization. And then having that one under my belt made it easier to talk to other organizations about providing a similar kind of service. So it builds. I'm not always sure that the talking engagements lead to enough direct leads to make them worthwhile, but if you enjoy doing them for their own sake and what you learn from doing them, periodically they do end up with connecting you to people who end up being paying jobs. And a lot of it is about building reputation and about people, somebody saying to others. So you're right when you say it's hard to draw a hard straight line from this to that, but you don't know, especially when you're talking to a big audience. So I did a bunch of those for the first several years, and again, it was a learning experience for me, and I was enjoying becoming a master of the content of those presentations, because then I could use that for my clients as I went forward. There
isn't anything like teaching to make you learn.
Exactly. Precisely.
So was there a time when you were just going to give up and say, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm done?
There was a point, and I think you look at your career and you think, by now I should be making more money, as a professional, and you wonder how you're going to get from where you are to that point. And the lure of a salary,
the paycheck,
does come back, and you sort of think, well, I could have that. But I resisted that urge, and I'm glad, because it was maybe a year later after I had that moment that I found a very regular client that needed a lot of help, and it bumped everything up considerably. And now I find, I'm very satisfied with where I am, especially because I have the earning level that I've achieved, plus the flexibility and doing things that I really enjoy.
That's great.
So you have to sort of hang on and resist the call of the salary paycheck.
The siren call of the salary, right. So are there times that you struggle with things? We're talking about all the external stuff, but how about the internal infrastructure part? What have you found challenging? What haven't you? What works? What doesn't?
I made decisions very early to invest in some technology to help. So, I have a good computer. I replace it every 4 years at least to make sure that I've got the tools I need.
Right.
I invested in QuickBooks right away, way before I needed it, before I was really making any money. But I wanted to have it from the start, and it's a wonderful, powerful tool that keeps me organized and keeps my accountant happy.
We'll save that little clip for the QuickBooks commercial.
Do the commercial.
Right.
Yeah, it's really valuable. I investigated like timekeeping software. They've got all kinds of things, but I find my Excel spreadsheet does it plenty good for me.
That's good. That's good.
My infrastructure is basically once a month I do invoices. It doesn't take that long, so I'm not regretting any of that internal stuff. I like organization, and I keep my files really well. And
so it all kind of comes together for it, because I think organization is something that really drag any of us down as consultants. Where did that file go?
Exactly. Well, and time is money, especially when you have your own business. So if I keep it organized up front, I can always lay my hands on the last time I worked with that document and the most recent version, and exactly when I need it, I can find it. So if I take too much time to looking for some presentation I did, when it happened to me, I created another folder for all my presentations and started filing them all there.
Right. It was kind of a lesson for you that way.
Yeah. You create your structure as you need it, and it saves time in the long run.
Sure. Well, that's great. So is there anything else you think would be helpful for our audience, for the people watching this to know that...
I'm always happy that I went ahead and hired an attorney right away. I work with an accountant.
Right.
I know I probably didn't need that. I could have done something on LegalZoom or something, to start my own business. But I wanted to take it seriously. I wanted to do it right from the beginning. I wanted to have no sort of fears or worries about how I was setting it up. A professional website right away.
Right.
I could have hedged on that, but I wanted it to look a certain way because it's your credibility. And I feel like that's an important thing to do, because I had spent that money. I was really in. I was not...
You're committed.
That's right. I was committed, and my accountant told me that you can deduct that over the first 3 years of your business, and that worked out well. So I would suggest that people do, if you're serious about it, invest in it, do it right from the beginning, and you'll never regret that investment. Yeah,
especially, I hear you on the technology, because it's tempting to skimp there, but to really be able to get your basic tool, which that is.
And this is your business. I mean, you wouldn't be happy if your employer gave you a crappy computer. And expected you to do great things with it. So I feel like, I'm entitled. This is my business. I'm going to be spending my life doing this, at least for a few years, I thought. And I wanted to make it work.
Well, excellent. Well, Kathy, this has really been great. Thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity, if there's a way of you want people to get a hold of you, if they have want to see this great website you have, which I know it actually is really good. I've been to it.
Thank you.
And other communication points.
Well, I mean, all my information is on my website, and I'm always happy to talk to people. www.sparknpc.com.
Okay, sparknpc.com.
Right.
Excellent. And anything else? Let's see, you can't say, and Kathy's going to be seen at. No.
No, I don't have any commercials at the moment, but
that's fine.
I do enjoy being a consultant, and I like talking to consultants, so I'm always happy to talk to people if they would like to share experiences.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Think NP's Backstage Pass this week, featuring Kathy Beveridge of Spark Nonprofit Consulting. Thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us.
Thank you, Matt.